Super glad that everyone is here. Hopefully you had a good time. I know that it's been Labor Day and now summer is coming to an end, unfortunately, and fall or autumn is coming. But no reason to be sad because I've got a ton of exciting stuff to cover today around the Orchestry platform. If you have been at any of our previous webinars, we've talked around a few capabilities of Orchestry. Last time, we really took a deep dive into some of the archiving capabilities that we had. Previously, we talked about reporting. Today's session is going to be around two aspects of Orchestry, two aspects that really are probably the most useful for a lot of organizations. One of them is going to be around lifecycle management. Lifecycle management, we're going to talk about how Orchestry can help you really manage and understand the complete life cycle of your teams, your SharePoint sites, your Viva Engage communities, your groups, and all of that sort of good stuff. And the other thing that we're going to talk about as well was the provisioning experience. Provisioning was really the first thing that we released in the Orchestry platform to really make that experience for your users really simple and really powerful to be able to provision teams and SharePoint sites and groups, but also making sure that we really strike that balance between self-service provisioning and self-service capabilities, in addition to adding on all of the governance and the security capabilities that we need. And especially in the age of getting ready for Copilot and people creating teams and sites and sprawl and all of that stuff, this can be a really powerful feature and a really powerful capability. So a little bit about myself. So my name is Michael Basarik. I am one of the founders as well as the CEO here. Lots of experience with Microsoft 365. I'm originally from Australia, have resided here in Canada for the last 16 years almost, far longer than I thought I would be here, but there you go. Again, really passionate about helping organizations just really make use of Microsoft 365 better. We love Microsoft 365. I know sometimes it comes across that we're a little bit cynical maybe in some of these webinars. We really aren't. We think it's a fantastic set of capabilities, lots of features. But as you know, there's a lot to Microsoft 365. There's a lot of stuff. Stuff keeps changing. Microsoft introduces new things. And again, there's a lot of gaps we find within there that really limit organizations getting full value. And that's really what we try to do with Orchestry, is try to really understand the platform, simplify that experience for you, whether you're an administrator or whether you're an end user, so you can get full value out of Microsoft 365. So you're not paying, $60 for an E5 license, and the only thing you're using is Teams to send some messages, and email, but you're not using any of the other fantastic stuff that Microsoft offers as part of that license, like managing tasks through Planner or using Teams for collaboration, using SharePoint for document management. Little bit around Orchestry. So again, we are a governance, automation, and security platform built on top of Microsoft 365. What we really want to help you is kind of unleash the full potential of your Microsoft 365 environment. Again, we see too many organizations, they're paying for these licenses, they're not really using any capabilities. We want to streamline that experience for your end users to make it easy around from a provisioning perspective, but also making sure that from your administration perspective, making that whole process easier to understand what's happening within your environment, to make sure you can manage the life cycle of these assets easier, and ultimately just to give you a better experience throughout all of Microsoft 365. Again, if you are interested in us, reach out to us, go to the website. Again, we always like to practice what we preach here. So if you're interested in what other people think about Orchestry, go to G2 or to Capterra to look at some of the reviews that we have. It's something that we're super proud of. The question really quickly is, why do we develop Orchestry and what are the types of things that we address? So again, with working with lots of different customers, again, we found there's some pretty common challenges and issues that most organizations have. And what we are trying to do with Orchestry is making sure that we address a lot of these. So you don't have to buy additional license. You don't have to go and kind of run PowerShell scripts and spend times going through different admin centers. A really simple, beautiful central experience for you. So the first one is kind of that lack of visibility and direction. Again, we're going to talk about some of our lifecycle management features shortly today here. Part of that is a really rich reporting suite of capabilities. And what we really want to do is give you a comprehensive overview across all of Microsoft 365, just so you can understand what the hell's going on. because it's really difficult to understand how many teams you have, how many SharePoint sites you have, are these things being used, do they contain any content, all of those pieces. We make that really simple and really beautiful for you. Next is around, again, helping IT teams, particularly with finding from a provisioning perspective. I think the provisioning piece of this might be really interesting for some folks here. Again, if you've locked down Microsoft 365 because you've seen the sprawl, you've seen the craziness, you've seen some person create 27 teams with test in the name, and that drives you crazy. Again, a lot of organizations lock down Microsoft 365 and they have an alternate process for you to request Teams, SharePoint sites, and groups. And typically that process is very manual, right? Where it requires a form and someone fits in, and then it's a human being from IT going through the form and putting something in. Maybe you're running a PowerShell script. Again, we want to free you up. We want to free you up to actually do things of value, because we know that finding great Microsoft 365 administrators is really difficult. And let's be honest, folks, you're really expensive, right? So it's much better for you to spend your time doing things that are going to help you and help your organizations get the value out of Microsoft 365 than doing things that we can automate within Orchestry. The third thing is around lack of governance, probably one of the biggest challenges for a lot of organizations, lack of processes. A lot of organizations we see as well from the governance perspective are on two extremes. Either everything is really open or everything is really, really shut down. Again, that doesn't really work for anyone at those extremes. We really think there needs to be a bit of a balance. But again, with the out-of-the-box capabilities of Microsoft 365, that can be difficult to find unless you're writing your own custom scripts or using a tool like Orchestry. Thirdly is around security and compliance. Of course, big topic at the moment. Microsoft has fantastic tools from a security and compliance perspective around things like users and devices and everything else. Where Orchestry really sits is helping you understand and apply security policies on your content and your workspaces in particular. So things like sensitivity labels, which are really important for Copilot, or having, version history enabled, or things like retention labels. We will talk about that as well. And the final thing is around Copilot and AI in general. Obviously a massive topic. Everyone is interested in Copilot. I'm sure some of you have tried it already, but again, you need to be ready for Copilot. It's not just something you can switch on, because Copilot in particular runs and really functions the best as long as your users have the correct access to the content that they need to have. Otherwise, you get things like Copilot or AI hallucination, where I might go and create a document and Copilot might use a document that I didn't even know that I have access to because it's broken permissions somewhere in some other site that I might not even know exists, and give me a wrong answer. So for a lot of organizations, again, getting the security, getting the governance in place is that foundation before they can start to roll out Copilot. And we can help with that. All right, lots of features to Orchestry. We're not going to go through all of these, but today we are going to cover lifecycle management, and we're going to cover these two as well, because provisioning and templates are both kind of the same thing. Last time round, we covered governance features. Next time round, we'll cover health checks. Again, Orchestry is a big platform. There's a lot of stuff. It's always growing. We're always trying to create things which we know are going to provide you value. And the first time, if you were on here, we did one of these webinars. I tried to go through everything in 45 minutes, and it was a disaster because I was speaking, at like 2 times the voice. So it didn't really work. So that's why we're doing individual components today. All right. Feel free to get engaged, ask questions, put your hand up, use the chat. More than happy to answer things whenever you like. Again, think of this as free consulting as well for you. So if you have any questions, whatever it is, feel free to introduce yourself. We want to make this as interactive as possible. Follow us on LinkedIn and all of that sort of good stuff. Pretty simple agenda today. We're going to do a demo of Orchestry, and my joke, which I am going to reuse every single time, is, most of these demo calls that you have been on, it's someone here, and then I go through a bunch of slides for like 30 minutes, and I tease you with the demo, and I say a demo is coming, and then when I finally get to the demo, nothing works. That annoys the hell out of me, so I'm not going to do that. We're just going to go straight to a live demo of Orchestry, and we're going to do it that way. All right, so let me, folks, switch up here, and let me go to something that should look pretty familiar to you. which is Microsoft Teams. Now, hopefully you can all see it. If not, just let me know within the chat here, or frantically start typing in messages into the chat and we'll know. But let's firstly talk a little bit around life cycle management, basically through here. So as you know, within Microsoft 365, there is a whole bunch of things that you typically create. Things like groups, SharePoint sites, and Teams. Hang on, let me move this bar here over. There we go, that's better. Perfect. So as you know, in Microsoft 365, there's a lot of things you're going to be managing, right? You're going to be managing Teams, you're going to be managing groups, you're going to be managing SharePoint sites. And unfortunately, on that side, it's kind of difficult to understand or to get a really comprehensive picture across your entire Microsoft 365 estate. So if I want to know what active teams and groups I have, I can go to the active teams and groups page here within the admin center. So this is great. This gives me a little bit of information through here. You know, I can see the users, the membership through here, some of the settings, right? All kind of make sense. So that's great. Unfortunately, if I want to know about communication sites, well, they're not on here because they're not a team or a group. So then I have to go to the SharePoint Admin Center. So then now I can go to the SharePoint Admin Center and start to look at things. And I get some more information here, page views, page visits, files, viewed and edited, right? Whether it's connected to a hub and all of that sort of stuff. And again, if I want to know a little bit more around Teams, for instance, I have to go through the Teams Admin Center, right? And try to look at Teams and let's say this template team, right? Try to work out who the owners are, who the members, who the channels are, all of that sort of stuff, right? So again, gets a little bit more complicated. So what we're trying to do with Orchestry is to make that process much, much easier. And not only that, kind of help you understand just what's going on with these teams and these groups. Because one of the main questions that our customers have is, okay, I have like 20,000 teams or groups. What's being used, what isn't being used, and how can I kind of manage all of this stuff as well through here. So that's where it all gets a little bit more complicated through here. So if I look at this, you know, I don't really know how many things are active or inactive. I can see the last activity date through here. So that's great, you know, and I can filter these things as well. But again, it's not the easiest process. And this is why a lot of organizations use things like PowerShell scripts to try to understand and stitch this information together. With Orchestry, we try to make that a little bit easier. So let's talk a little bit about lifecycle management. And the first part of lifecycle management really is trying to understand what you're trying to manage, right? We can't start putting in policies and adding things around this without understanding what it is. So with Orchestra, we have a section specifically for that. And our lifecycle capabilities are really in two parts. The first is around what we call our workspace insights or our workspace reports. These are really rich, detailed reports based on data that we gather across all of Microsoft 365. So imagine taking all of the information that's in here and in here and in here, and then essentially putting it together and being able to show it to people in a really quick and simple and easy way through here. So first thing is the dashboard. What I do like about this is you can instantly see what you have across your entire estate, not just teams and groups, but how many communication sites, how many Viva Engage communities you have. We break down the privacy for you. We show you how many teams you might have with a single channel, maybe how many workspaces you have with guest access, which is enabled, which is really, really important through here as well. Down the bottom as well, we also show you some trends. Really important to know how you're trending in terms of things like growth, for instance, right? So we can also show you how many workspaces, remember a workspace when I talk about this, are teams, SharePoint sites, groups that have been created in the last 90 days or the last 365 days. And we'll give you a little nice graph here. How many have been renewed and also how many have been archived. And this is both archived through Microsoft Teams or archived through Orchestry. But this is a really good thing to see what's going on, because if you've just got these lines with 100 or 200 teams or SharePoint sites or workspaces created every month, but nothing's been archived, you're going to get this crazy growth over time, which is not going to be good for you. So the dashboard gives you a really nice overview. The biggest thing, though, that we do, particularly around the concept of lifecycle management, is we can also track the inactivity of these workspaces. Now, a common question that a lot of organizations have is, well, if I'm going to apply lifecycle management to this, and a simple process might be for every team or SharePoint site that you have, If it's not used for 90 days, then what we want to do is we want to go out to the owners and ask them, do you want to archive this? Do you want to renew this? Or do you want to delete this? Well, in order for that to happen, we have to understand inactivity of workspaces. And one of the things that we do within Orchestry is we track that for you at a very powerful granular level. So here I can see we've got 884 workspaces and a bunch of them haven't been used for more than 30 days through here. If I click into here, now I get taken to the Workspace Insights listing. And this is where you can start to drill down into all of the information that you have. Let me make this a little bit bigger here. So here I can filter things like maybe the type that I have, whether it's a team site or a team or a communication site, for instance. Notice how fast this is as well. We use something called Cosmos, which makes it really fast and really easy to get the data that you want through here. Maybe you want to understand a workspace with a particular status. So maybe I want to see everything that's active, for instance, or all of my workspaces that are inactive, but I just want to see inactive, maybe communication sites, right? Or inactive Microsoft Teams. Really simple and really easy through here. And there's a whole bunch of other things that we can filter by as well. Maybe I just want to see everything that's inactive that a particular user has access to. So maybe everything that's inactive that Diego has access to here as well. So there's 279 of these. And of course, with any of our reports, I can export them. So I can click on export. We're going to export these in Excel for you. And again, you can kind of drill down into this information if you need to later on. Now, one of the things that I mentioned here is around inactivity. So one of the really powerful things that we do with Orchestry is we track the inactivity of workspaces. And it's not just the inactivity at the group level. We try to break it down for you so you can understand it in a little bit more of a granular fashion. So let me go and find one which I know is a little bit more interesting here. Let's go for this one here. So this product insights team, for instance, I can see that it's been inactive. Actually, let's do this one, the product development research team. This one's more interesting here. So I can see here that this has been inactive for 64 days, but this is an interesting one because I can see that because we can track it individually, we can give you more information. So the last time the Teams component of this team was used was 344 days ago, and we say Teams activities, any conversations, reactions, or replies within the channels. The last time the mailbox for that group was used or for that team was 344 days, and the last time that the SharePoint site was used was 64 days ago. So it allows you to break things down a little bit more granularly than you can get out of the box. What it also allows you to do is to really understand, are people creating a bunch of teams, but they're not using Teams at all? They're just using it as a file storage mechanism, which indicates or is indicated in this area, because you've noticed that we've been using this 64 days ago, but no one's really had any conversation in almost a year. So again, it gives you some more information through here. Lots of other types of insights, though, like inactivity is not the one thing that we want. Lots of other things that we can have here. So again, the ability to understand any ownerless workspaces, super useful, right? Probably your first protocol from a governance perspective. Do you have any teams, SharePoint sites or groups that don't have any owners, and how many members they have, how many documents, workspace size, all of that sort of good stuff as well through here. Helping you understand, again, from an inactivity perspective, how much activity is actually happening on these groups or SharePoint sites, page views, page visits, files viewed and edited, how many documents, workspace space usage. Other types of reports really quickly. One that I like the most is around workspace content. We can even help you understand how many documents you have within these SharePoint sites, or how many pages from a communication site perspective, how many list items are there. Maybe you've got a lot of users using lists to store information, and also your workspace space usage through here also. So again, lots of interesting and powerful information and lots of other reports. Again, this is all kind of a prelim to help you understand, well, how are we going to add Lifecycle to this? And then really quickly, of course, this is all at the aggregated level. So this is all great, but I might be interested in a little bit more detail. So if I click onto this Orchestry product development research team here, I can exactly see all of the information that exists through here. So when it was created, any metadata, here's our inactivity status. Here's all the links as well to any of these attributes. This is great if you're an admin, because I can be taken directly to the SharePoint site, the mailbox, the team itself, the admin center for Teams, the Azure AD admin for the group. If there's any OneNote files or planner plans, we'll also show you that. Super useful info through here. And we will also show you all of this information in terms of owners and members. Now, I know these look like straight lines, and I always do this. These are actually graphs. It just this is a demo environment. We don't ever use it apart from demos, but you can actually see how these things change over time. And it can be incredibly useful because if you find a workspace where the growth of documents is through the roof, it's probably something you want to consider as well. And of course, we can give you information about users, about lifecycle, and all of that other good stuff. Okay, so this is great. But what typically happens is organizations come to us and say, we've got 423 of these that haven't been used for more than 30 days. If I want to apply lifecycle to this, how do I do this? And with Orchestry, from a lifecycle perspective, we allow you to apply what we call policies, renewal or archival policies. And this can then provide lifecycle and give each of your Teams SharePoint sites and everything else a lifecycle status. So what's really neat here is when I look into this particular tenancy here, I can see I've got 227 active, 423 inactive. A bunch of these are pending approval. We'll talk about what that is. A bunch of these have been approved, and a bunch of these have been archived as well. Now, I'm not going to go through this too much because if you were in the last session, I went through this in extreme depth. But from a lifecycle management perspective, what you can do with Orchestry is you can say, okay, I want to say that every time I have a team, if that team isn't used for more than 180 days, what we want to do is contact the owner of those particular teams and get approval for an in-place archive. So this gives us the ability now to have lifecycle. Our lifecycle will be, we're going to go create a team. If it doesn't get, so it's going to be active until it hits in 180 days, then it goes to an inactive state. When that happens, Orchestry is going to then go send a notification to our workspace owners here, getting approval for an archival. And what's really nice about our features, particularly from an archival perspective, or from a lifecycle management perspective, is two things. A, they're infinitely flexible, right? So you can have no notifications. If you just want to say, if this doesn't get used for 180 days, we're just going to archive this thing. Or you can maybe go and perform some archival actions, let owners know that this is happening, but don't give them the ability to stop it. But typically you want to get your owners involved, so we can do that as well. Couple of things which I really love, the notification cadence. I call this the harassment cadence, because as you know, no one answers the first of anything these days, right? So a really common thing we hear from customers is like, yeah, we try to do these cleanup. I send emails out, maybe through a PowerShell script. 80% of people don't get back to me, right? And then you have to track who got back to you and who didn't. So it's painful. Orchestry is going to make all of that really simple and beautiful for you. So we're going to say we're going to send a notification once a day. We're going to try for 5 amount of times. We'll keep pinging those people unless someone obviously responds, right? And then we can specify how we want to archive these pieces. Again, I'm not going to go through this in too much depth, but lots of flexibility here. Whether we're going to archive it in place, where we're going to move it to a SharePoint archive. And from a lifecycle perspective, we can even say what we don't want to have is just a simple create, use, and then dispose. Maybe we want to have 2 steps. So we can even add a second step. So we can say create, use. Once a person hits that inactivity threshold, we can do a first stage archival. And that first stage archival could be, let's just keep all the stuff where it is. And then you can either add a second step. And a second step could be, well, if this has been archived for like a year and someone hasn't used it, maybe then we'll move it out to another storage mechanism, or maybe we can delete it as well through here. Again, lots and lots of different options available here through Orchestry. And then you can apply these policies. You can apply them retroactively from a cleanup. You can apply them proactively, for instance, through here. And essentially what's going to happen is every night, Orchestry is going to go, look at all of the policies that you have, and it's going to start sending out these notifications. So I'm a owner here of lots of these teams, right? I can see here that this morning a policy has been triggered, right? This workspace has been classified as inactive. I, as an owner, I'm going to get this notification sent to me both by email, but also through Teams. And I can say, well, you know, I don't need this anymore. So I can type here, click on archive. I can click on archive to archive it. I can even delete it as well. I might be like, well, I just don't need this anymore, so I'm just going to delete this workspace, right? I don't need that at all. But maybe for another workspace that I'm an owner of, I can actually go back into here and say, well, this one I still need. So I still need to use this for the project. It's not finished. That's the best real life typing I've done ever. I can click on renew. And then maybe for this third one, I'm like, well, I don't need this, but I don't want to delete it. So I'm going to archive this one as well, right? Again, lots of options, lots of flexibility there to add lifecycle to your workspaces all the way through here as well. All right. Really quick. So that's a really quick overview. We can talk about hours for this in terms of lifecycle, but pretty cool, right? Add these policies, add them retroactively, add them proactively. And what's really nice, if we go back to this one, right, you can see this workspace has been deleted. I think this one we may be renewed through here. There we go. So this workspace has been renewed. And again, everything is tracked as well through here, which is super neat. So if I go into here as an admin, for instance, and I click on lifecycle here, I can see exactly what's happened. And this is an interesting one because what's happened is the workspace has been renewed. I am playing Archie here, 9:26 a.m., right? Ready to go. So again, everything's going to be tracked through here and you can see all of this stuff. So really simple, really beautiful, and it also works at scale. Now, we're also going to talk about provisioning as well. So let's talk a little bit around first feature we work with Orchestry and one of the most powerful, which is around the provisioning experience. So as you folks probably know, people, when they're creating Teams or SharePoint sites, it's a really difficult thing, right? What we expect all of our users to be experts and they can go in and create Teams and SharePoint sites and add tabs and pages and web parts. Truth is 99% of people will never do that. And what we found with Orchestry is that the best way to drive amazing adoption of Microsoft 365 is not just to allow people to create Teams and SharePoint sites, but give them what we call workspace templates. These are templates based around specific business needs, and they're all built ready for you. They have everything that you need, right? Everything in SharePoint, everything in Planner, everything from Teams, including channels and channels and tabs, everything ready to go, right, for you. And that's how you can do two things. A, drive consistency. So every time someone creates a project workspace, the project is going to be the same regardless, right, of who provisions it, who creates it. The second thing what we can also do is make sure that we adhere to security as well. So we can also put in rules within Orchestry to make sure that if someone requests a project, that we have a naming convention, for instance, that security is enabled, that they have to choose the sensitivity labels and all of these pieces. So really simply, from a provisioning experience, you can create Teams and SharePoint sites, configure them in whichever way you like, and you just point Orchestry at it, and we're going to copy that stuff over for you. Very different than the out-of-the-box experience, where you're going to have to create your own custom code. On the SharePoint side, you're using things like site designs and site scripts, for instance. On the Teams side, using things like Teams templates. You're looking at a lot of code. It can be really, really difficult. With Orchestry, you just create a team. We're going to point Orchestry at it, and we're going to copy everything over for you. And what we support is things like, obviously, Teams channels. It's going to be things like tabs as well. So we can even configure tabs that we need through here. Oh, I don't have access to that. It can even be tabs as well through here, right? So if you've got, tabs for PowerPoint or Excel or anything else. Orchestry also supports Planner, which can be super useful. Particularly from a project perspective, you can even have a Planner plan as part of your template. So imagine every time someone requests a project workspace, they get Planner now here as well. Other things that we support, SharePoint, everything you might want in SharePoint, lists, libraries, pages, content types, all of that sort of stuff as well through here. But the biggest thing, or one of the biggest things for a lot of our customers, is also that ability to have things like documents within here as well. So imagine that ability that you can also have documents as part of this. So again, when someone requests a workspace through Orchestry, everything is there for them, right? All of the lists, all of the libraries, all of the tabs, all of the channels, all of the documents, all of the tasks, everything is ready to rock and roll, right? They can start using this straight away in a really consistent fashion. Hopefully my microphone's still working here. The other thing that we also do with Orchestry is we add this thing called the Team Information tab, which is incredibly useful to every team that Orchestry provisions. And it's really nice here because it gives your users a better understanding of just what exists within here. Some really handy links to everything, the ability to see the users, some guest management functionality, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. Okay, so how do I take a team that I've created, and of course it could be a team, It could be a SharePoint site, it could be a Viva Engage communities. How do I make this into a template? So let's go back to Orchestry. And we're in a bit of a different experience through here. So we're in Teams here. This is the Orchestry app. And we're going to go to Orchestry Management. And we are going to go to Templates through here. Now, again, we've only got about 10 minutes here. So we're going to rip through this. But there's a lot of features and capabilities and configuration options. But let's go through the main ones, which we know people want through here. So let's go to another team here. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay. So let's say that we want to create a template for a client documentation workspace as well through here. Actually, let's not use this one. Let's use a team. Team's more interesting. Client project workspace. Tremendous. Great one. Okay. Client project workspace to make sure that all of our projects are consistent. Again, you can give it a name. You can give it a description. This is really nice to provide some more context through here as well. Really simple things that you can do. You know, a template image. So when people go through our beautiful request wizard, they can see what it is. I think this is a great feature that we have as well, a default workspace logo. Like imagine every time someone creates a client project, you can have a default logo on there. So every project team has the same logo. So at least visually, when you look at it, you're like, this is obviously a project team, right? Regardless of what it's named, because that logo can be there and it can be consistent. And then to make something into a template within Orchestry, you just point it at an existing team or an existing SharePoint site. So let's use that client project team here that we had, right? That's the one I showed you previously. We're going to choose to copy everything over, channels, tabs, all of that stuff. Copy everything over from SharePoint, copy everything over from Planner, right? Really simple. And of course, if you update these, you can then go, if you update the underlying template, next time we do this job as well, we're also going to copy all of this over. So again, you don't have to deploy custom code or get developers to change these things, all of that stuff. We're all going to do that in real time. Now, there's lots of great end user capabilities. We want to empower our end users to create teams and SharePoint sites and groups. But we also know that with great power comes great responsibility. And for a lot of organizations, that self-service aspect can really get you into trouble. So how do we allow self-service, but then also add different types of security and policies to this? So providing some additional guardrails. So let's go to the configuration tab, because this is really where we have a whole range of capabilities that you can apply on a template by template basis. And this is one of the things that's really powerful about Orchestry is each template can be configured differently. So you might have a client project workspace, for instance, that allows guests, but you might then have an internal project workspace that doesn't allow guests. You can configure this at a very, very fine-grained level. So what are some of the things that we can do? First thing is around access or permissions. We allow you to use sensitivity labels if you're using those. We support those as well. We love those. If not, you can also have things like default permission types. Another really powerful feature that doesn't come out of the box in M365 is the concept of minimum owners and minimum members, right? Ownerless teams, ownerless SharePoint sites are really, really problematic. It's painful. And it's really painful because you don't know who owns the content. So you can't even start to add lifecycle to this stuff or archive it because no one's the owner. And if you folks work in IT, you know you just can't start deleting a whole bunch of stuff from people because people are going to be upset. So having the ability to have a minimum number of owners, super duper useful. So we're going to say every time someone requests a workspace, we're going to have at least 2 owners here. Again, we're not enforcing the members that we could. For some of you more technical folks, being able to configure group configuration options, incredibly useful as well, right? Disabling that stupid group welcome email. No one uses that. Drives people crazy. No one knows what it's there for or why it is. We can disable that as well. Maybe controlling things like hiding this group or team from the global address list, or maybe controlling if external senders can email this group, all of that sort of good stuff. Again, we give you that ability to even control things like SharePoint permissions and SharePoint sharing options on a template by template basis, right? Lots of granularity here. So again, you can empower your end users, but you always want to make sure you have security front of mind. And it can also save you an incredible amount of time because lots of customers before Orchestry are all doing this as kind of these post-provisioning manual steps running PowerShell. Don't have to do that. You just configure them all within Orchestry. There's 2 things, though, again, which are really powerful from Orchestry from that provisioning perspective. One of them is this concept of approvals. So again, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing within Orchestry. You can also have approval processes. So you can say, well, when someone goes and requests a workspace, it has to go through an approval. And again, you don't have to. It's purely optional. Again, available on a template by template basis. And you can even have different approval processes for different types of templates. So again, incredibly useful, because you might want to have all of the projects being approved by the PMO, but you might want to have maybe all of the news hubs for communication sites being approved by the corporate communications team. So again, lots of flexibility. One of my favorite features, though, is really around naming. Now, I have never seen a customer that has good naming of Teams and SharePoint sites. Typically, it borders somewhere between awful and horrific. The names that we've seen are comical in nature. Hundreds of thousands of teams called test, demo, TST, temp. We've seen so many Teams and SharePoint sites called OneDrive, which gets really confusing for everyone as well. So people are creating Teams and SharePoint sites called OneDrive, and then they call the IT folks and says there's an issue with OneDrive, and they don't know what they're talking about. If they're talking about OneDrive or a team called OneDrive, it gets confusing. But one of the ways we can get around this is having a naming policy. And the way that we do that within Orchestry is really neat, that we allow you to capture metadata. So think of metadata as additional information that we can capture as part of that request process. And again, it could be location, division, department, customer code, whatever you want. You can create whatever you want through here. We support things like choice fields, like manage metadata as well. Incredibly useful, right? If you've already made an investment in that. And then from that metadata, we can now go and create naming policies, and different naming policies for different types of templates. M365 has a group naming policy. I think it's kind of useless, because not every group you want to be called the same thing. You want that granularity. And we can do that within Orchestry. So we can say that for a project, every time someone goes and requests a project, we're going to limit the amount of characters, but we're going to prefix that with PRG, then the location value, then the division value, then the name of the team or the SharePoint site itself. Again, lots and lots of flexibility here, controlling both the name of the team, the group, and the SharePoint site, and even the URL, right? You can have them separate. But again, it gives you that flexibility. So every project is going to be prefixed with PRJ, and conversely, maybe every department is going to be prefixed with DEPT. So lots and lots of capabilities here. Okay, really quick overview on the provisioning. But what does this look like from the end user side, right? How do end users actually deal with this? So the way that it works within Orchestry is, again, we provide your users that single pane of glass, that single place where they can go to whether they want to request a team site, a team, a communication site, a Viva Engage community, right? Whatever that is, they can go to it from one single place. The great thing around that is, again, you're providing the central portal. And you're not just giving people the ability to create Teams or SharePoint sites or communication sites. You can, of course, but you're giving them these workspaces which are already built for them. Remember, everything in Teams, everything in SharePoint, built around your organizational best practices and standards. So you can actually drive that usage. So, if I'm an end user and I'm like, well, I want to work on a project, this experience is very different than expecting me to go and create a team and add channels and add tabs. People just don't do that, right? So again, we can help you with that. So we all want to work on an internal project together. So I'm going to click on this and click on continue. The next thing which we can do, and I haven't kind of covered this as well, is this concept of customization. Maybe we'll do this another time. But what Orchestry allows you to do is allow you then to create these things called features. Now, think of a feature as any type of customization on top of M365. A list, a library, connection to a hub, permissions-based stuff, whatever that is. It gives you that ability now to empower your users, not just to create everything from a template, but also to customize these workspaces, but in line with your organizational best practices. So again, really powerful capability, which we haven't talked about, but lots and lots of good stuff here. Next thing we got to do as the user is put in the name of the workspace. So I'm going to choose Africa and accounting here. This is the metadata, the information that's required. And as soon as I click on next now, notice that the name of my workspace has been partially filled in. So PRJ because it's a project, AFR and ACC, again, depending on the metadata, right, that I've had through here. And again, if I change this metadata, you notice that the name of this is being filled in through here. The other really nice thing that I like, and it's a subtle thing, is again, when someone starts typing in the name of the workspace, we're trying to stop that sprawl and duplication before it happens. So if you start typing in the name of a team or a SharePoint site and something with the same name already exists, we're actually going to tell you, right? Hey, this already exists with the exact same name. You can't create it again. In Teams, I can go into Teams and create 50 teams called human resources. And that's really problematic for a lot of organizations because, again, you have the same team being called the same thing. And behind the scenes, Microsoft changes the URL and does a bunch of trickery, but it looks like the same thing. You typically don't want that. The other thing is if we're dealing with duplication at the top is sprawl down the bottom. So we're also going to say, hey, you're requesting something called pilot. Here's a bunch of other teams, SharePoint sites, communication sites, groups, whatever this is that you already have access to. And really, you might actually just want to go and access that team or that group or that SharePoint site instead of creating a new one. So a really nice kind of experience for people, again, to stop that sprawl and duplication there. We're going to call this project TED 1. We'll say this is going to be for North America and for production. And again, you notice I don't need to know anything about that naming policy. I just put in the name of the team. Notice how the naming policy is all set up. The URL is all set up. Simple, easy, and beautiful for people. Next thing we're going to do is around the permissions as well, right? So here I have to choose a sensitivity label. So I'm going to say that this is going to be external. And I can't actually move forward here because I need at least another owner, which is great because, again, you don't want these ownerless teams. So I'm going to click on another owner. And I'm going to add a gentleman, which has the exact same name as me, which is very, very rare. But I'm going to click on this person as well. Now that I have two owners and I have at least one member, I can click on continue. Okay. Really simple for your end users. Now, again, you can customize these. You can see exactly change screens, do all of that sort of stuff as well through here. As an owner as well, I can also see all of the teams and all of the SharePoint sites that I've requested as well through here. So really simple and really easy. And then going back now on the management side of things, if I go back to Orchestry through here, if I go to Orchestry management, now again, the other thing that I can also do is, remember, we had that approval process applied. So let's imagine now I'm part of the IT team. I see this request come in. I can see that, Archie here has requested a team. I can edit this, make sure that all the information is correct, make sure they have the correct owners and the correct members and all of that sort of stuff as well. I can wait for these approvals to finish, but in the end, what I'm just going to do is click on approve here. Everything's going to be tracked, and we're going to start to provision that team and that SharePoint site for you. And at the end of this, that experience for your users is you're going to get everything there built out. And we also do a really good job of logging as well. So you can see exactly what's going on here. And we're going to check if the requester is a team license and all of this sort of stuff as well through here. And again, you'll kind of see this live as we go through this process of provisioning this team and this SharePoint site. Okay, lots to cover again today. Always run out of time. I do apologize. Before we jump off here, folks, hopefully that gave you a bit of an idea, a bit of lifecycle management capabilities, a bit of provisioning capabilities as well. Let me go back to the slide deck here as well. If you have any questions as well, now is the time. But if you're a little bit shy, that's all right. That's all right, because you can get in touch with us and you can start off with a free 28-day trial as well. Again, if you're interested in your environment or you want to get your hands onto Orchestry, we make that process really easy and really simple for you. The 28-day trial was a really good way to get the full kind of overview of all of the Orchestry capabilities that we have. So again, whether it's lifecycle management, guest management, provisioning, all of that sort of good stuff we have as well through here. And even there, if you're, a slightly larger organization, we can even take you through what's called a managed evaluation. We'll even work with your team to make sure that you're getting the most out of your Orchestry experience. Right on time. Doesn't seem to be like there's any questions. That's fine. I know everyone's new probably here. If you do have any questions, let us know in the meantime. Oh, Rob, you have a question. Can you set a policy for renewals to trigger besides an activity? You can, Rob, now. Yes, you have to do we've got APIs to do that. So you can use an API. And if you use the API, Rob, you can track it based on anything. So a really common example, Rob, probably what you're thinking about is imagine a project end date piece of metadata that's attached to a project. Imagine you can write a really simple Power App that kind of scans that, or Power Automate that scans that, and then triggers that API endpoint. So not out of the box at the moment, but we do give you APIs to be able to extend that functionality for you also. Awesome. Thank you everyone so much for your time. Again, really quick demo as usual. We'll do another one in the next three weeks. I'm not sure what that topic's going to be, but again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Would love to chat with you, and have a fantastic rest of your day.